Over the past couple of years, I've been speaking at various events around the country. This is my first ever gun conference, so I was told that I would get a really warm welcome from gun rights activists because we tenthers and you seconders are extremely good friends. I've often been told that when you give a speech, if you don't piss anybody off, you haven't done a good job, because you're not challenging their regular mode of thought. So hopefully I can irritate a few of you in just a little bit, but let's start out with the easy stuff. As I said, I am a tenther. That means I believe the federal government is only authorized to exercise those powers that we, the people, gave to it in the Constitution, and nothing more. For example, that would mean no Obamacare mandates, no bankster bailouts, and especially no gun laws of any type. No permits, no background checks, no registration, and no ATF or BATF or whatever they're called these days. So question, how many here, I think this is a silly question, how many here are firearms owners or manufacturers or sellers? I'm probably in the safest room in the country. Well, here's another question. How many of you are proud felons? By that I mean, when the federal government comes up with some rule that restricts your right to keep and bear arms, do you ignore it and exercise your right anyways? Right, a few people are courageous enough. We should be proud of that. A few weeks ago, I went to an event in my new hometown, although I grew up in Wisconsin, my new hometown of Los Angeles, called hemp-con. This is a huge convention in downtown Los Angeles at the LA Convention Center about marijuana. And there's all kinds of vendors and hundreds of people there. And businesses for everything related to the marijuana industry. Just anything you can think of. There were home security companies so you could protect your weed in your house. There were solar power companies so you could have the energy to grow the weed in the house. There were doctors handing out medical marijuana cards to anybody who had $80 in 30 minutes of their time. There were even home delivery companies. In LA, you can get marijuana delivered to you 24 hours a day in 30 minutes or less. I'm telling you, the pizza companies have nothing on these guys. Actually, that might be a good marketing idea, you know, buy an ounce, get a free pizza. They should really explore that. I actually have a point with this story. The interesting thing, virtually every business at the Los Angeles Convention Center's hemp-con was either directly violating federal law or helping someone else do so. Because marijuana, according to the federal government, not the Constitution, is illegal all the time. But there were no DEA thugs kicking in anyone's heads and arresting anyone. People conducted their business in peace and freedom, the way it should be. Another quick story. In 2005, the Bush administration was successful in getting the Real ID Act passed. I don't know if many people here are aware of that. But this was what people called a nasty, unconstitutional national ID card. It was more background checks, more registrations, more paperwork, something that you people have all been dealing with for far too long already. Well, you know what they told us? They said if we did not comply with this Real ID Act, what would happen? We wouldn't be able to do all kinds of day-to-day things, like open up a new bank account, or travel, get on a plane, or go into a federal building. I mean, I actually like the idea of not being allowed in a federal building. I don't want anything to do with them anyways. But they told us that these things were going to happen. My lovely girlfriend of many years, who's over here taking some video, much of her family lives in Missouri. Now, Missouri does not comply with the Real ID Act. Well, her family comes and visits. They get on planes. They show their non-compliant Missouri driver's license. They get on a plane. No TSA thugs stopped them from doing so. They exercise their right to travel freely, and no one bothers them. And in fact, 25 or more states are defying the federal government on the REAL ID Act. And if we talk about the Firearms Freedom Act, there are people who are standing up for gun rights on a state level. 8 states have now passed the Firearms Freedom Act. And following that lead, 5 states have passed a Healthcare Freedom Act to, in essence, say no to Obamacare mandates on a state level. Here in California, we pretty much do whatever the federal government wants us to do, no matter what. Well, except for weed. We say no to D.C. on that. In fact, in 2005, the Supreme Court ruled that all state marijuana laws were illegal. At the time that ruling came down, there were 10 states that had medical marijuana laws. Do you know how many were repealed after the Supreme Court told us they were illegal? Right, 0. And in fact, today, there are now 14 states defying the federal government and getting away with it. So this is really the lesson. It's the blueprint. When enough people say no to the federal government, and enough states pass laws saying no to the federal government, there's not much that Washington, D.C. can do about it other than quietly and slowly back off. There's been no tanks rolling into Los Angeles shutting down marijuana dispensaries. There's no jackboot thugs going into Missouri forcing people to get new driver's licenses. People are acting in freedom without federal permission. So maybe here's the important question, maybe the challenge where we see if you're interested in these ideas or not. But the next time that you begrudgingly follow some law that restricts your right to keep and bear arms, we all do it. We say, well, I'm not going to conceal carry until I get that permit. Or the next time you hear about some court case where maybe 2 or 4 or 6 years down the line, some judge is going to give you permission to exercise your rights, but you don't know for sure. Ask yourself this question. Do you, gun rights activists, do you have as much courage as the pot smokers? For the sake of all our liberty, I hope you do. Because we, the people, need to learn how to exercise our rights, whether they, the government, wants to give us permission to or not. Thank you.